And the next book I read is a fiction. It's The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. The Graveyard Book is a book that Tim Ferriss recommends a lot on the Tim Ferriss podcast, especially when he's doing a spot for Audible or something like that. And there's a commencement speech by Neil Gaiman, which I like to listen to periodically, re-listen to it periodically, every so often, because it's that good and he drops a lot of gems in it. And it's a commencement speech that he gave at the University of Arts in 2012. And his speech is titled Make Good Art. So if you Google either of those, Neil Gaiman commencement speech, Make Good Art, you'll definitely find it. But as always, I will also link to it in the episode notes for your viewing pleasure. I highly recommend it. But anyway, aside from these two things, I was planning on, I've seen interviews, I've listened to interviews and seen interviews with Neil Gaiman. He comes off as somebody that has something to offer, especially within the realm of writing. I hadn't read any of his work up until this, and I was also planning on taking his master class because my wife got me that for Christmas. She got me that all that year pass for the master class series, where you can watch as many videos as you want, take as many courses as you want within a 1 year span. And I'm actually in the middle of Margaret Atwood's masterclass. Margaret Atwood is the writer that is responsible for The Handmaid's Tale, amongst other books, but that's by far her most popular. And it's an interesting course so far. But anyway, I digress. Back to Neil Gaiman. I'm planning to take his masterclass, and I hadn't read any of his stuff aside from, watching his commencement speech and stuff like that. And Tim Ferriss always recommended this book, so I decided to give it a whirl, and I was not disappointed. I wasn't completely enthralled with it. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. It was really good. It's obviously super high quality, great writing, awesome storytelling, but it just wasn't a 5-star read. I would definitely give it 4.5 stars if you can give halves, but I don't think you can in terms of ratings on Audible. So I would definitely give it a 4. And just to give you some background on the story, spoiler alert, it is a story of a family that gets killed in the middle of the night. Father, a mother, a daughter, and there's a toddler in the house that the killer didn't notice. He didn't see him. And the toddler winds up getting away and walking over to a graveyard and winds up being raised by the dead undead. Well, not the undead. They're dead. They're not like zombies or anything, but they're like ghosts that live in the graveyard that all decided to raise this kid. The parents, which are now dead, were also there, but for some reason didn't seem like the primary caregivers in the story, or I think they had to go away for some reason. But anyway, it's an interesting concept, and the kid is, being raised by all these different personalities from different time periods, which is interesting to play with from a writing perspective. I see how that must have been fun for Neil. Because the fact that they're dead, you can have a nanny from the 1700s, then a teacher from 1923, and all these different types of styles and personalities inputting traits into this toddler that they're collectively raising as a village. But yeah, the killer considers this toddler that he finds out is still alive, considers him a loose end, and comes back. Eventually, when the kid is, I want to say 13 or 16 or 18, something like that. But alas, his attempts at completing his little murder spree over a decade later are thwarted by this young, now grown-up toddler and his fellow goons, pun intended. And it was a fun read. Neil Gaiman, I'll say, is very descriptive. He makes it really easy to visualize each setting within each scene that he's writing within. That's definitely a takeaway that I took from the book. And I also took away a tip on audio recording, in that when Neil changed from character to character, he changed the inflection and the animation of his voice to fit specific characters, which I thought was pretty interesting and cool. But yeah, check it out, folks, if that sounds like something you'd be into. It's called The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. And again, I'll link to it in the episode notes.